I wish my clients would stop applying for jobs. That is what a career coach told me last week. He and I were chatting about what's resonating with our clients, what are we seeing in the market, and his number one thing was he wished his clients would stop applying for jobs. And listen, I know that sounds crazy, but we were talking about what really moves the needle in a job search. And applying a million times over, submitting as many applications as you can, isn't getting you there. And I get that that sounds counterintuitive to finding a new job, right? If I want a new job, I've got to apply. And it feels productive, right? From the outside, applying feels like good work, right? You're updating your resume, you're filling out applications, you're trying to stand out. It feels like, hey, if I apply enough, something's gonna land, right? It feels ultra productive. Like you're just checking things off your list, submit 100 applications, and something will come my way. But for most mid-career professionals, that is not what drives results, especially not in a market like the one we're seeing now. So here's what I keep seeing. People with real experience, solid backgrounds, good careers spend hours applying to jobs and get nothing but crickets in return. And like, listen, let's be real, right? In mid-career, midlife, we are busy. We do not have extra time and energy to spend on an effort that is going nowhere for us. But that is what I keep seeing, right? I'm searching job boards. I'm finding things I want. I'm taking the 30 minutes to fill out this application and then I hear nothing, or I get auto rejected, or I get a little bit down the pipe and then it fizzles out, or I get ghosted. And it starts to mess with you a little bit, right? Like you start thinking, is it me? Is my resume bad? Am I not qualified? Is the market just completely impossible right now? And to be fair, the market is really tough. It is a definitely one of those markets we will look back on in history and be like, wow. Right? It reminds me of like the 2008 like recession time frame, right? When you look back and you go, wow, this was rough. It is tough. But that is not the full story because at the exact same time, I am seeing people land interviews, multiple offers, and move forward in this same market. And I see it every single day. So what's going on, right? Like, what's the difference, right? What is this juxtaposition that we're living in? And I had two conversations recently that really stuck out with me. And I think that they illustrate the difference that we're seeing, especially when you are an experienced professional. So these are two people who, same market, same industry, same background, really, right? Like on paper, they could have almost been the same person, like if you scrub it up a little bit. And they had pretty similar timing, but they had two very different outcomes. The first person had been laid off months ago, right? Like mid last year, even maybe a little bit before that. And when I asked how things were going, she told me, I have been applying everywhere. I've submitted hundreds of applications at this point. I'm trying to, do everything I can. I've got my resume optimized. I adjust it for every single application. I'm trying to, figure out all those ATS things I've got to get around, right? So I'm not getting rejected by the AI and the bots, just anything to get me through this system. Something's got to land for me. And you could hear it. She was working so incredibly hard, right? It is where she was at was not from lack of hustle or lack of effort or lack of desire, right? It was applications, tweaks, keyword optimization, trying to do everything she could to crack the door open just a little bit, but nothing was moving. Then I talked to somebody else, right? Same background, same industry, really similar situation. He had been laid off much more recently at the end of last year. And when we spoke, he was in final interviews, already had an offer on the table, had another one he expected to land, which he actually did, and then had two or three more he was waiting on to come through. Multiple offers, multiple opportunities that he was able to choose from in this same very disrupted market that we're living in. So, what was the difference between these two? He didn't try to out-optimize the system. He built his search around people. He got really clear on what he wanted to do next, right? What were the jobs he was targeting? What were the types of companies? Who did he know at those companies? And then he was able to just start having conversations with people, letting people know. Anytime somebody said, "Oh, I'd love to help you," he followed up with them. He didn't sit around and wait and go, "Oh, okay, I hope somebody magically comes and lands something on my door." He went out and pursued every lead that he had, every kind of warm conversation that he had been, right? Went back to past colleagues, past customers, past clients, right? People he had worked with who had seen his work. And he made it really easy for those people to help him because they understood exactly where he fit, what he was looking for. And so they showed up for him. They gave him the introductions, the conversations, the interviews, the offers. And that was the difference. That was what the woman I had talked to was missing in her strategy. She left the people out of it entirely. And the shift that most mid-career professionals, right, we just don't realize that it happens, is that like early in your career and in a completely different market, applying worked, right? When we hit the job market, a lot of us submitted applications on monster.com or Indeed or wherever, or sent in paper applications, right? A lot of us were in those phases too. And you would get contacted by a person, you would move through the process, right? Things would work. And early in your career, right, you're just being evaluated on the skills, the experience, whether you match the role. It's can you do the job because it's entry level. But at mid-career, those aren't the primary questions anymore. The questions become more complicated and they become harder to find in a market as saturated as we've got right now. And the real question is can I trust this person to handle what we need? Can I hand them the problem that I'm hiring for? And can this person handle it? And that is a judgment call. And judgment doesn't come through an application on a piece of paper. It comes through in a conversation, in a trusted conversation, especially. And right now, right, if you haven't seen this, right, let me be the first to tell you, the hiring teams are overwhelmed. I see a million Reddit threads about, oh gosh, recruiters are terrible and how could they never respond? And like, girl, it's not that. It is that everyone is doing their best and their best is drowning because think about it. If you're thinking about and looking at jobs, and you see when you click on that, click apply on LinkedIn, there's hundreds of applicants already submitted. Somebody is on the other side of that table receiving 100 applicants. I've hired for positions in the past where we had a flood of applicants come in. And I can tell you it gets overwhelming. At a certain point, you're like, oh my gosh, does somebody on the team already know somebody who applied? Right? That's when you start really looking for some kind of signal that person number 457 of 789 is a good person. Because in reality, I'm not getting that far in it. And honestly, I'm overwhelmed at 50, not even when we get to the real numbers that these recruiters are having to deal with. They don't have the time, they don't have the energy, they don't even have the risk capacity to guess who's actually good, right? We have to hire great people. We have to get them in and moving and off the ground really quickly, right? Pressure is high. And so decisions in that kind of a situation always shift to referrals, trusted connections, conversations, and not because it's exclusive or we're trying to, only have a certain club of people who are here. We're doing it because it's efficient. Right? This is a practical need at this point. So, what does that mean for you, right? If applications aren't the center of the strategy, which again feels counterproductive, and I get it, then what is it, right? What should be the center of my job search strategy if I'm out in the market today? And the ones that are actually working have the same foundation. It's not that they are doing anything magic. They're really going back to the fundamentals that work. And the five big things that every single successful search has in common is one, first and foremost, they have a very clear target, right? They have spent some time, not an extreme amount of time, but enough time to get really clear on what are the very specific targets that they're looking for. What are the types of companies? What's a company list? What kind of problems do I solve? What value do I bring to the table when I'm in the types of roles at the type of companies that I'm solving, right? They are crystal clear on what they're looking for and how they align to that, right? They can tell that. Um, they've done the work to figure all of that out, and then they can tell that. So the second thing that I see everybody have is they have a really strong value narrative, not a list of the responsibilities, their experience, all the things that they've done. It's a clear answer to what can you do, what results can you lead, why are you valuable for this specific job, right? They've taken all that information that they have spent time figuring out on where they want to go, who they've been, and how those two mesh together, that they can then tell a very concise and clear story. This is where you hear like personal branding and things. That's what this really is at the end of the day. Like when you think about personal brand, that sounds woo-woo and fluffy, and people tend to want to avoid it. What it really means is, can I talk about myself in the context of the target and the space that I'm trying to move into? And then the third thing is that once they know where they fit in and what their narrative is, then they make their assets work for them strategically. And the two biggest assets that you have are your resume and your LinkedIn profile. Cover letter in there a little bit, but resume and LinkedIn get misunderstood. And especially for somebody who entered the market 15, 20 years ago. And now those things are very different. LinkedIn didn't even really exist when when a lot of us joined the market. It didn't exist when I joined the market. But is a key foundation now. But you have to know what they're for. Your resume is to get you into the yes, interview them pile, right? It is a required document that you need to be part of this process, right? It's your ticket for entry. But when somebody reads it, especially recruiter, especially hiring manager, when somebody maybe hands it to them, hopefully, then they glance at it and they can tell very quickly that, yeah, you're a good fit for this job for sure, right? Like we should interview them. That's all it does. Your resume doesn't get you the job. The resume gets you in the door and gets you in the yes pile. And your LinkedIn, you've got to think of as like your own little personal website that is optimized for SEO, right? So when somebody Googles, they find you, right? It's your website that pops up to the top. And so what you've got to think about is how are you optimizing your profile so that it shows up in LinkedIn Recruiter tool, like in that tool that LinkedIn has specifically for recruiters. Do you have your information in your profile structured in a way that allows you to show up in the top results? Because if not, you're invisible and your LinkedIn profile really is sort of pointless at that point. So it's not the entire life story. It's do those two things, serve those two jobs. The fourth thing is a conversation first approach. This is the gold of the strategy, right? The other things are the foundation. This is the work. This fourth part of this is where you spend your time and your energy and your effort in the most active space. So this is where you throw sitting down and submitting a million applications out the window, and you replace that with reaching out to people, starting conversations, letting people connect the dots and open doors for you. This is where you want your resume picked up out of the pile and thrown onto someone's desk who is making the decision. And I know that feels overwhelming a lot of times, but it is, when you break it down, what do you need to do to make that happen? It's really not that overwhelming, right? There's just a few key things that you need to do that move you in that direction. But that's got to be the bulk of the active work of your job search. It's got to be about finding those connections and finding those spaces in. And if that feels overwhelming, that's okay. It feels overwhelming a lot. Come talk to me. We can talk about how to make that feel a little better for you. But that's where your time and energy should be spent. That is where it pays off versus submitting a whole bunch of applications that are leading you nowhere. And then the fifth thing is consistency. You've got to be able to stay in the game, right? So what we see a lot of times is people have a lot of energy at the beginning of a job search, and by the end of it, they are burned out. They let everything get to them, and they just lack some of that consistent action and follow through that really pushes us there, right? This is about momentum, little things every day. This is where you like go read the book Atomic Habits, get that 1% better, 1% closer every single day. It's how do you stay in the game as long as you need to stay in the game to get there. And the game is longer right now, right? This isn't I apply and I start booking an interview right away, although the market does seem to be speeding up a little bit right this second. But on average, the time from first application to offer is like 83 days right now is the data that I saw. I mean, that's like 3 months. Like, let's be realistic. This is not a fast process right now because companies can be so choosy. So know that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so run accordingly and figure out how you protect that for yourself and how you make that work. Absolutely possible. Absolutely do it. It should be part of your job, not your whole job. It should be part of your day, not your whole day when it comes to job searching. That's how you stay in it for the long haul. So, if you're early in your job search right now, this is definitely a moment that matters. And if you're not early in your job search and you realize that you're kind of off track and you're not on a trajectory that's going anywhere, this is a great time to realign, right? This is your moment. You know better, so you do better. And so this is when you think about what's the approach you choose right now, right? Is what determines whether you're still applying in 3 months, or if you're choosing between offers, is what you do right now. It's not about luck. It's really about structure and where you're spending your time, right? Get the biggest bang for your for your buck. And if your current approach feels slow, frustrating, inconsistent, take it as a sign to step back and take a look at it, right? Figure out where that breakdown is and what you need to do. Hey, and if you want help fixing that, that's exactly what my program, Your Next Role Accelerator, does. I have a cohort kicking off in the second week of April. It was going to be the first week, but I realized that it was supposed to kick off on Good Friday, and many people are on spring break and unavailable. So we adjusted. Everybody gets an extra week to sign up. Lovely. But that program is a 6-week program to move you through all of these steps, right? If this feels overwhelming and okay, this is great and I can do this, but how do I do it? That's what the program's for. And it really, I think, helps people. Obviously, I believe in it, but it really helps people move from tangled up in spots or slowed down in spots to just feeling like you've got this steady, relaxed movement that is getting you towards your next role. And really that's what it should be, right? Like I said, it should be part of your day, not your whole day, but that part of your day should be efficient and effective to land you your next 100K role. Like that's where we're at right now, right? We're mid-career. We're going for a lot of stability and freedom and security. And so we're using processes that help us get there. And if you're not sure, right? If you're like, well, I don't know if this is for me, or maybe I just feel like I've got a little piece of this tangled up. I talk to people who are all the way through the process, and it's just that last bit of interview that sometimes tangles them up. Send me a DM. Let's have a conversation. I've got a great next move assessment that we can do. It's a quick 20-minute conversation. You don't have to invest a lot of time, but you and I can really dive deep on where do you feel tangled? Where do you feel like things are, not quite converting to the next step for you? And then figure out what you need to do from there, right? Whether that's working with me, great. If it's not, great. You go off and figure out what you need to do. But I'm here for you. I want you to be successful. Like I said, the market is tough, but it is not impossible. And that's really where you've got to live in that space of you can do this with the right strategy, with the most effective kind of moves forward, and you can absolutely find them yourself. So if you want any details on any of that, it'll be in the show notes here, but also just DM me on LinkedIn, DM me on Substack, wherever you want to talk to me, and we can get this done for you. So I really hope that you have a great rest of your weekend. Spring is upon us here in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's a beautiful day outside. So I hope that you are feeling a little bit refreshed, feeling a little bit hopeful, and knowing that you absolutely can get to the next space for you. And you don't need to try harder. You just need a better game plan. So put down the popcorn and get in the game.